Amazing. So next we have another panel. We're going to talk about winning the digital shelf with Isaac, Marie, and Agnes. Hi, guys. Everybody else from the last panel can drop off of the video.
Hey, Laura.
Hey.
How are you?
Great. So if everybody can start by giving sort of a 30-second introduction about themselves, that would be great, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll go first if you don't mind.
Sure, Isaac. Yep.
My name is Isaac Wanzam. I'm the founder and chief strategist at Geeks E-commerce. We are an e-commerce agency based just outside Toronto and Whitby. We spend a lot of time working with brands around the world, retailers here in Canada, but also a lot of CPG brands. Some you'll know, companies like Lassonde, McCain, Bimbo, and everybody of that nature. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Marie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie, the founder of Sampler. At Sampler, we help brands digitize product sampling, so very in line with today's topic. And we work with emerging brands as well as big brands, about 600 brands to date. So I'm excited to be part of the conversation.
Amazing. Agnes?
Hey, everyone. My name's Agnes. I'm the head of sales over at Change Connect. We are a sales consultancy. So we do anything and all things that have to do with growing an organization's top line, CPG being one of our verticals. So I figure we'll come in and have a chat with Marie and Isaac today.
Awesome. Jeffrey?
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us today. Very excited to dive into our winning the digital shelf. And I think maybe the first part that we could start with, and I think it's kind of influential today, that once we've kind of gone through this pandemic, and I'm not going to say that we're out of the pandemic, but as we're maneuvering through it, one of the things that's really changed is how consumers are buying and how consumers are interfacing with products today. I think we can go back in time and say that, getting samples or QR coding or spending time in a store and having someone hand things out and trying things, I think that's been kind of our de facto, what we kind of grew up to and what we probably enjoyed, going to Costco so that we could take a toothpick and eat some piece of whatever they're selling or giving away. I'm sure we've all done that. Always exciting. I'm sure there's people that just spend their time eating those all day and then decide to go shopping. So, but in that process, a lot has changed. And what has changed the most about it is that brands are now being challenged by many startups coming in with new products. They're starting to get the ears and the eyes of the consumer. But these big brands are now saying, I've got to compete better. And what I need to do is start looking at this world differently. And how do I get out in front of those customers? So Marie, maybe you can start and share a little bit about how you guys approached, and when you started your business, how you approached going into this market. You came from a background of working and doing the offerings of all these great products and pushing them out to people. And you saw a gap and said, you know what, I need to tackle this. This needs to change. This is too old school for me. Let's go in this direction. Maybe you can share a little bit about that direction you and Sampler took.
Yeah, so I was at the University of Ottawa when I first took my first brand ambassador job. I worked for Mosaic at the time, like many of us, I'm sure, did, handing out samples. I was in grocery stores, I was on street corners, and I recognized that, every single time you ask a brand what makes their product so special, they answer with an experience. They're going to say it's the taste, it's the touch, it's the packaging. And I did that, by the way, on my LinkedIn yesterday. I tested that to see if it was true, and it is true. That's exactly what every brand founder will say. And so I recognized at that moment that experiences are really valuable. Trial is very important. Yet we were giving a sample to someone who was just randomly walking down the street. And then we were letting them go away with all of the insights that we could have about how their experience was and whether or not that experience would convert to a purchase. So I was studying digital marketing. So that was driving me nuts. I just thought there's so much data opportunity. So fast forward I think it was like 5 years later, I actually went ahead and started Sampler. And I was surprised to think that no one was actually doing this. I'll tell you, building a new category, like as we were talking just earlier, even in tech, is really difficult. We're 7 years into building Sampler, and the COVID-19 pandemic, as horrible as it has been a quick reflect. It really helped people reflect on the challenges of traditional product sampling, because all of a sudden safety was a concern, right? So the shift to digital is happening right now because of safety concerns. And we're seeing huge amounts of demand for what we call digital product sampling, or e-sampling, which is ultimately targeting a consumer online and shipping a sample direct to home, because direct to home is a lot safer than the Costco experience or whatnot. But it took time. It's not easy to shift an industry that's been doing things for the same way and for a long time. But now that behavior has been kind of forced onto the industry, I don't think anyone will really go back to 100% traditional sampling, because now they recognize they can collect data. They can have all those benefits. And by the way, Sampler is launching today a cost-effective solution that will make sampling direct to home the exact same price as handing out a sample in grocery store. So we're at that point of scale now where there's literally no other reason to do sampling in store.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
hitting the red button again, which probably should be green or whatever, but I don't know how else to do it on here, but very exciting. Congratulations. And I like what you kind of shared about the data opportunity, that there's a massive amount of data that we're not capturing. And I know Agnes and Isaac, you both have a lot of data points that you guys capture in this. Maybe Agnes, you can share a little bit more about how you guys tackle that data side, because one, you guys are driving sales, you're driving how these brands are interacting, where they're getting their products to, and they got to be dying to get some real information. And as Marie shared, handing out a sample and that person walking away and you never see them again, that's not exactly the best way to find out if they've ever bought or if they ever do anything with your product. Maybe they spit it in the pail. You will never know because you're not following them around. So Agnes, maybe we can share a little bit about how in your, I think it's been 10 plus years on how you've been doing this inside of your business, and how you can share a little bit about what that data collection looks like today.
Absolutely. So, the way we look at it in also an interesting twist too, because a lot of times when we talk about data, we're talking about marketing data or conversion, marketing to sales conversion data. But when we track, our customers' pipeline and what their interaction look like and their conversion, we're really tracking from I always say, let's start our customer journey by when the customer is aware that they need this product, because the whole conversion and the evangelist piece is another category of events altogether. But from the moment that the customer recognizes that they need their need, all the way down to a repeat, whether they are a micro influencer in their own network, where they're referring or there is a repurchase opportunity. When you're looking at it holistically from all the way from marketing all the way down to conversion, it's interesting what you can collect in terms of the data that you can look at, even in the CPG space. Because when you talk about the idea of sampling, what Marie was just saying is the Costco experience that much more superior than what Marie is doing in terms of home delivery experience. I'm actually one of Marie's fans. I'm one. I'm in her monthly parties trying to get these samples, and she makes it really fun, right? So, and in that part, it's not just about going to Costco and spending the day there and getting the free samples and then shopping. It's also about the atmosphere they have created in terms of the avatar that they collect in the parties, and what is it that they are doing in attracting the brands that allows her to run things more efficiently. But that same idea is in the brand individually, going through and calculating their numbers in terms of conversion. Because to me, we measure campaigns, right? We measure effectiveness of campaigns, and sampling is one area using influencers or running, radio ads. I was talking to a client yesterday about running TikTok, getting on TikTok, pros and cons of doing content on TikTok. So for me, really is breaking down each campaign and each avenue of bringing client in or bringing customer in and getting exposure and seeing the conversion rate per campaign and whether we have targeted the right client. A lot of times, like yesterday, for example, we were talking about this particular health food brand and she said, Agnes, my brand, we're for women between the age of 30 to 70. That's my target audience. And I'm like, yo, hold on 1 second. The women between the age of 30 to 70 have gone through many life stages. So I'm like, their buying behavior and what they're attracted to and whether they're even on TikTok, it's actually everyone's on TikTok at the moment. So maybe TikTok is not a good example, but the way that you get to market is a little different. So really breaking down the individual data point down to buying behaviors and their optimal medium for touch points, all that data point can actually now be collected. I've enjoyed COVID personally, not because of COVID, because of the downtime in looking at and how it gave a lot of organization an opportunity to revamp their organization in a way that makes it a lot more efficient than pre-COVID from a business standpoint. And I think it gives people a lot of opportunity, an organization a lot of opportunity to look at the way that they run their business and to run it in a way that I think not even more efficient, it's smarter. It's smarter. We talk about niche marketing. We talk about really chasing after and owning a particular niche before moving on. So there's quite a bit of, I guess, targeted data that I would suggest to do for sure. And same as Marie, I wouldn't give up a chance to collect any data point. Collect it, and then we'll know how to use it later. But don't give up any opportunity to collect the data point.
No, and I love that, and thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that there's there's a lot of little pieces that you really put into there that make it impactful. But the biggest one is the biggest two, I will say, is one, you create an experience. So this experience goes into many verticals, into many directions. Obviously, if you're marketing, you can't be marketing to a 40 gap. So 30 to 70 is pretty big. You probably want to shrink that down. And I'm sure today's data shrinks it down to 30 to 35, 35 to 42, 42 to 43. Like, it's really impactful now when you're getting that data because you're learning so much about those buyers and what they're doing at that age group. But I think the biggest one that really resonates is that when you are looking at the data, understand the data. Because there's so much metrics that are just being pushed away and they're just going to the standards. Oh, this is what we've been doing for years. And I think Malcolm Gladwell did this the best. They went and tested marketing spends and he wrote a big thing on this, or was his podcast. And he really dove into what did this spend really do? And was this ad dollars really being influential in driving the brand? There was a part where he said that they forgot to put the spend through and it went months and they didn't even notice. And then they had all this money left to spend and they needed to do something with it. And there was massive panic around the business because the traditional spend wasn't being done and everybody was going to get fired. And really what they did is they just needed to look at the data and understand who their consumer was and what the outcome was. And Isaac, I know in your business, you guys spend a lot of time helping brands understand a lot of that. You've built a lot of tools that help speed up the process. But there's a lot of data that you guys go through. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you guys function with these brands globally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we come in at a slightly different part of the equation. By that time they come to us, they've gone through what Marie does and what Agnes does. And then finally, at the point of the purchase, which is what we call it, they're on the shelf, they're trying to determine, is this product for me? And for us to achieve success, meaning we're driving conversion, driving sales, and some of the things we spoke about, we have to be able to deliver on that message, on that promise that you really make with your brand at the beginning. So we're beginning to look at do we understand who our customers, who are we talking to, what kind of story are we telling them? You talked about this huge gap between 30 and 70. You can't tell the same product story in such a large gap. So we spend a lot of time really digging into what that means and translating that into content. Then we look at where's that content going to live. So a lot of our customers are selling on Amazon. They're selling, with partners like Walmart and some of the folks that the Flow founder spoke about today. But all those have different requirements in terms of how do we speak to them and how do you sell to that. There's different style guides. There's different expectations from imaging and so forth. So our job is to kind of take all that different story and visually present it in order to drive that sale. So when you do talk about e-commerce, there's some very, very specific, obviously, data points you want to talk about. You're talking about, cart abandonment, how many people are actually putting a product into a cart at that store level and then deciding not to buy it, right? When you're spending money on advertising, what does a conversion of that look like? How many people are you actually bringing versus how many are you turning into buyers? We see customers who spend a lot of money. I'm going to do a massive buy on Google or there's one on Amazon, but for some reason I'm not getting the sales I'm looking for. We get into that and we look at, can I come to a conclusion that, well, look at your pages, look at the images you're using. Believe it or not, there's still startups and even large companies that are doing their own shots. They're using iPhones, and for us, we look at some of that and say, how do you expect to actually realize the benefit of the spend? So we use a lot of these data points and a lot of those driving sort of factors up front to really turn that into a growth opportunity and actually help sell products, which ultimately, whether you're in CPG or otherwise, that the brands are trying to do, whether you're small, you're medium, you're Flow, or you're McCain, you want to tell a story that makes a customer feel comfortable and really confident in the quality of what they're going to get. The COVID we mentioned here, a lot of our traditional, let me taste it and have it in my hand before I decide to buy it, didn't happen for a very long time. But I want people to look at this product and feel that, okay, this is good for me, this is healthy, because images are great, because you've given the nutritional values, you've shown me all angles of the product. You've used lifestyle photography and presentation to see how I could be using this product or drinking this juice, as it were. So that to us is, translating those data points into an actual opportunity to drive a sale.
So what you're kind of diving into is that all of this experience has to be somewhat relatable to the category and to the people that are going to consume it. And if you don't find a way to make it relatable, there's not really going to be the outcome that you're looking for as a brand.
Absolutely. And I think, just listen to some of the previous panel, a lot of business owners, they'll spend so much time and passion creating this product, and they'll go through all the research to ensure that it tastes right and so forth. But when it comes time to show it to the world, it's poor lighting. It doesn't look like that's something that I want to put into my body. So ultimately, that's where that decision point is. And if you don't get that right, it's almost like everything else you did was an investment that's not going to come back. So that's how, in our world anyway, all those things work together, is whether it's bread or it's muffins or it's a pair of headphones, right? You have to be able to communicate the value, that quality, and really build that confidence and that trust in order for your customer to actually be able to make that transaction.
So if you take those, the last lines of trust and quality and the lighting and all of these things, now let's say that we put all brands out and it's all equal and everybody has amazing photography, well written, focused on everything. What's the next level? You're trying to win this digital shelf. So, and maybe Marie, you can jump in and share, because you've really had to change the way, like you said, today it's at home, the pricing's the same, we are competing. What's the wow factor now? If everybody's equal, what becomes the new wow factor? What changes my experience now from what I have been doing to where I am today?
Well, I'm thinking about it as what would I do as a brand? And like we spent a little bit, we talked a lot about something that I think is changing, which is personas. Like Agnes, you were talking about that like very long age demographic. So many brands come to us at Sampler and say, I want to reach Active Susie, right? Like we've all kind of heard about Active Susie. Like Active Susie is dead. Who you want is the person who will buy your product. And I think like that's what the power of the digital shelf is. At the end of the day, next time someone says like, who do you want to target? I want to target someone who buys my product, right? Like that's what we want to do. And this is the power of what's happening right now in retail. the retail media networks that are starting to be built are so incredibly powerful, because you have a store that drives a purchase in a category, telling you this is the person you want to go after, and not caring at all about whether she's Active Susie or Lazy Marie, right? Like, it's a person who will buy. And so I believe that the future of advertising is optimizing your campaign around people that buy your product. That's like fundamentally what I believe. And that's a very broad demographic set, probably. And sure, there might be some certain certain demographics that pop out of that. But I think that this gives a really interesting amount of time for brands that are D2C first to really win in this space. Like, right now is the time where you can actually understand who's on your website, understand what they're doing. And so yesterday I was buying products. I actually bought a bunch of my friends. I asked a favor yesterday on LinkedIn, and I said, I'll make an order on your website. And you know what the biggest point of differentiation I saw on all those sites is someone charged $3 for shipping and the other charged $20. That to me is like problem number one. Like, if you have people on your website, getting them to convert so that you can own their information, so you can understand them better, so you can market better, is probably like the first thing I would do. So direct line of communication, as Agnes was saying, do not ever give up an opportunity to collect data. If I abandon cart because your shipping was $20, we've lost the opportunity of capturing my data. And you know what you'll have to do? You'll have to spend another $20 on Facebook ads to retarget me so I come back. Just give me the damn free shipping. It'll cost you a lot less. So I think we just need to stop thinking about personas, start thinking about there's people standing at my till, there's a person at my cash register. What does she look like? What does she want? How do I get her data? And then how do I do that over and over again?
And I love that you're going to the repeat model. And I think a lot of brands forget, or a lot of e-commerce places forget, that you need to get that first sale. You need to get that first data, as you mentioned. And if I don't have them check out, or at least check in and put their profile in, I've got nothing. All I've got is that there's some IP address in this neighborhood that was interested in my product. I'm going to retarget the hell out of them, spend way more money to get them back when I had them. And all I needed to do was simplify my process. And simplifying.
Absolutely. And I'll add, in 1 year from now, when Google removes the retargeting pixels or your cookies, you will be it'll be impossible to even do what you just said. So the time is now. Your shipping needs to be zero, and you need to make sure you capture the data.
And it's amazing you say that when they remove that. So you're forward thinking to what the possibilities of are that can ruin the digital shelf if you're not paying attention. But if you look back, mass email distribution used to be the thing. And then Canada blocked that. And I'm sure a lot of businesses took a big hit that day. And it's always trying to figure out what that next piece is going to be. And Agnes, I'm sure in your business, as helping these businesses grow and get into the right people, you have to focus on what the trends are, but how do I keep that person buying? How do I get them in there? How do I build a profile around them? And then instead of trying to find, as Marie shared, I'm trying to think of the names, the crazy Karens and the Susies and all of these names. And so instead of going after these profiles, you're actually just going to bucket your clients, your customers, into categories, and you can break them out however you choose, by age, by buying power, by whatever it is, and then just focus on making sure they're getting the right deals. And you're retargeting them with another great deal, because what you care about is closing the door and making sure that customer is repeatable, and not once, not twice, but 30 times over the next 3 years. So Agnes, how are you kind of taking that approach to emphasize a lot more to your clients that they need to be converting, because that's going to grow their business?
I think I'm going to piggyback on what Marie said and just give it some context too, because I don't want the audience out there to think just abandon the idea of avatars, because I don't think that's what Marie is saying. Marie is saying that you shouldn't be focused on an avatar when you don't have enough data to tell you what those avatar is just yet. So it's interesting because a lot of times when we first work with startups, they in their mind create this avatar that they want to chase after. And back to what Marie's saying, it may or may not be the right avatar, but for the founders' belief, and a lot of times what I don't like to is the founders' belief is a profile type that's just like them. Because a lot of times they're solving and resolving their own issue, and hence they believe they are their own ideal avatar. And that's when we run into issues when we're talking about campaign and conversion ratio and what makes sense. So depending on the client and whether we agree based on market research, when we talk about running campaigns off avatar, we would actually give them feedback. But what Marie is saying, the other thing that is, aside from just running campaign off avatar type pre data set, so to speak. But there's also this other piece that Marie's speaking to that I want to elaborate on, which is like attract like. So what Isaac's saying about having a brand story. So when you send your brand story out into the world, right, into the universe, you will attract people that to come to your site and or buy or try your product out that believe in what your brand messaging is. So back to what you were saying earlier too. There is no, when we talk about all things being equal, you and I both know that it's not all things being equal. Some people tell their brand story better than others, and those are the people that's going to convert their customers, right? So a lot of times it is that brand story that attracts. It is your first purchase. I mean, after that, we talk about, Marie's free shipping, but free shipping and or retargeting right now, and or some sort of subscription that we can set up, any other, repeat or MRR strategy that we can put in place in terms of the CPG category. But it is that first purchase. And when we talk about that first purchase, how much of it is influence? When we talk about the customer buying journey, we're pretty scientific when we map out the stages. So when you talk about the buying journey, from needs recognition all the way to the first purchase, what we're finding in our data set is, especially during COVID, actually, and maybe it is, I'm not talking about, maybe it is that the Costco experience. So, it is CPG. So majority of the conversion has to happen with an online presence and or influencers and or things that you do online. But before, traditionally, I would say they're first some sort of a touch point being an influencer and or reading review, generally their own research part of the process. It's all the way from, I would say, 60 some odd percent of the entire customer journey pre-COVID. But what we're finding post-COVID is that touch point in the CPG category before it goes to an influencer is actually, I would say, as compared to traditional B2B, traditional B2C business, it hasn't moved as far as the other customer journey when their first touch point traditionally have been at the 40% mark. So when we're moving the needle to the 70 or 80% mark, where the first interaction would be, is a huge change versus the CPG category, which is about 60 to about 70-ish%. So the idea of using influencer becomes very important. And the idea of having good customer review becomes very important, because at the end of the day, they're buying into your brand story. They're buying into what someone else told them online. And the more credible the source, the better when you run the campaign. So yes, review is important, validated review is important, but also I'm a believer of you doing collaboration and doing influencers, because I find from a cost per point standpoint, it's fairly effective if you know how to use those campaign mechanism wisely.
It's amazing, Agnes, how you've kind of broken through so many of these stages. There's a lot. And from a startup founder perspective, there's a lot of things that you really have to learn and understand. And oddly enough, which is what all of you three fit into, is marketing. It's all about that marketing experience. how do I work with my customer? How do I focus on them? How do I make their journey easier? How do I collect their data? How do I profile them? How do I start to learn more about them and engage with them, make them my friend so that they'll continue to keep coming back and buying? And it all goes into that customer journey, like you said. And then you've got other pieces that help exemplify your business by putting in influencers and other tactics. They're going to help really exemplify that. So Isaac, taking all of these things that are kind of fitting into the bucket and how you're kind of helping close the door on that transaction, what are some of the things that you see as ways that businesses, startups specifically, can focus on conversions and helping their customer get to the end goal, which is a sale for you and a new customer and some new data points? What things do you see as being, call it trendy or call it the new post-COVID, however you want to look at it, but what are some of the things that you can share that the audience can learn from?
Sure, absolutely. I think in terms of post-COVID, I think one of the things that has become evidently clear is the impact of digital on all sales. CPG's probably seen the most growth, groceries seen the most growth, probably more so than any other category over the past 12 months. So as far as trending is, you're going to have to learn and understand how to sell online, right? You're not going to be able to deliver and create that experiential approach that may have been the previously approach. So that's one reality for sure. The other part is also, we talk about, where the digital shelf itself is, but the digital shelf is in so many different places, right? I mean, whether you're in a marketplace, obviously, whether you're selling on Amazon as an example, that's going to be different in terms of what your tactics are and what you can do, right? You can't speak your brand story the same way on somebody else's market platform as you would if you're in a D2C sort of a setup. So you have to think about, how do I make those things work together? How do I use my D2C to build my brand, but leverage really the traffic and opportunity that a mammoth like Amazon may have, or a retail partner like a Walmart may have. So really understanding how those two things work together is really very, very critical. And then just to go back to what I mentioned earlier, I think that you need to do a good job to be able to close that gap just by how you present your product. How it's called online merchandising. If you walk into any store, if you walk into any restaurant, how you feel about you being there is going to determine whether or not you stay, whether or not you buy anything. And then after that, it's all part of the same experience, right? The sale doesn't end when somebody converts. What is the follow through? You've convinced me to buy something from your website. What does the delivery look like? Do I get an email that said thank you? Do I get a guarantee of return if I'm not happy with what I got? So that is true in all categories, but certainly also very true in CPG, where it's still very new and people sometimes are not sure what and if they should buy. So that's how you grow that loyalty. Now, obviously when you're working with retail partners, you're selling on Loblaws, or you're selling through, somebody like Sobeys, you don't have that same degree of control, but you still have to be able to be part of their messaging and part of that. So, they want you to respond. They want you to be able to, to be creative in terms of where it is. And then to go back to what Agnes mentioned, really, let's talk about the behavior of our customers, right? If somebody's buying my product wholesale because it's water and they want to buy it for the office, that purchaser on Staples business is going to be different than somebody who's buying it for their family, as an example. So let's really understand what our packaging looks like, what is our pricing needs to be like in order for us to take advantage of all these different touch points. Now, of course, to go back to TikTok, they've partnered with Shopify. You're going to be able to actually make transaction between those two platforms really quite seamlessly. So that has also implications in terms of where that shelf is. What can I show? What am I presenting? I can't go into a long story, but can I make that same degree of comfort with different tactics? Do I use an infographic instead of a lifestyle photography? Do I use an A+ page or enhanced content? Do I make videos? Where does user-generated content come into my strategy? That's all part of what we call social proof. In it, how does social proof become part of my conversation? I think Marie mentioned reviews. Critical. Nobody buys anything without somebody saying, you know what, I tried this, and it was exactly what they said. All that is part of, from our standpoint, not only just trends, but just ways that you need to execute in order to to win the digital shelves. Answer questions that your customers may have about your competition. What are they not happy with over here? That's what we begin when we begin to build content. They like this, they didn't like that. These are the issues. We take that and make that part of our conversations, whether it's food or otherwise. So all this, and it's a long answer to a short question, Jeff, really has to be part of your go-to-market. It is a competitive space. Whether you're launching a new disruptive product, there's very few categories where you're not going to find other players, right? So you asked, how do I differentiate myself? It's all about that experience, that follow through. That if you think about it, the brands you are most happy about, the brands you go back to, whether they're businesses or products, are the ones that make you feel valued as a customer. And ultimately, that's what we want to do.
I love it. And a great summary too. You look at, I think the key ones you can take out of that is all about presentation. Present something that people want, follow through to the very end and keep following through. Build your social proof, because today everybody wants to be handed with, I don't know what the term was. Is it soft gloves or something? They want to be that glove service, right? White glove service. I think that's the term. Everybody wants to be taken care of from beginning to end, and they don't want any discrepancy in that journey. So you almost have to be a perfectionist in order to make this work, if that's how you're going to take over that digital shelf.
Absolutely.
So in saying that, and because we're coming near the end, I would love to get one trend that you guys see and one tactic that you think is what's going to define this category. And because you guys are supporting startups and supporting businesses, maybe you can share a little bit about where you see that digital shelf tactic is. And it could be, again, we've talked about TikTok and all these other things that are really the in thing, but those are tactics. What are the trends? What's one trend you guys see that is really formulating today, outside of what Maria already shared about her business doing what she's doing, because that's phenomenal. But outside of that, what other things do you see as a tactic that's going to really change the CPG environment? And then what is that? What's that trend, and what's that one tactic? And maybe we'll start with you, Marie.
Yeah, I spoke to it very quickly, but the retailer media network, if you're not buying media from your retail partner today, start. I think they're really thinking about like exactly what we talked about. Like, I want to target people who purchase in my category. That's the best target market. People who, if you're in the cookie dough business, people who buy cookie dough is your target market, right? So, or people that maybe buy adjacent industries that you've identified as relevant. But the retailer media networks are a really exciting trend.
Agnes, over to you. One tactic and one trend that you see as being big this year.
I'm going to go with the timeless customer experience. I think the core of it, especially in the CPG category, is so expensive. Like the cost of acquisition is so expensive. So I don't want, and it's so easy for someone to leave your brand. So I think I guess my one advice is to make sure when you have them as a loyal customer, then don't screw it up. Like, I don't care if it's shipping, or I don't care if it is, labeling, one complaint on the customer, like comes to customer experience, or dealing with a customer experience rep, whatever that is. It should be seamless to buy you, and it should be easy to buy you again. So really look at your customer sort of experience and be able to take away some of those barrier to repurchase.
And one tactic?
Yes, I think my tactic, I'm gonna hammer that still. So I think the tactic is really to look at your customer experience and be able to even improve it if at that. So, look at where perhaps you're not doing so hot in the customer experience. When you talk about CPG, everyone talks about how great it, like a lot of my founders talk about, I'm gonna spend more money on making it taste better. I'm gonna give them more choices, and they spend a lot of money on R&D. And the truth of it is, great, you're giving them options in R&D in terms of what product to buy, but at the same time, you still have to make it easy for them to come back.
I love it. Isaac, quickly, one tactic and one
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a trend is something that we probably have started to see over the past 12 to 24 months. Brands are no longer going to be the only trusted source for their authenticity or their story alone. It's going to be really your customers who are going to convince other customers. We don't believe anymore what companies telling us about them. It's really what our peers are telling us. Try this product. So as far as tactics goes, make that part of your strategy. Let your customers be your evangelist. Tell everybody else about the product, and create tools that are easy for them to do that. Whether it's reviews on your page or whatever, upload videos of them using your product. But ultimately, I think that's where that's going to go.
I love it. Agnes, Marie, Isaac, you guys are phenomenal. Thank you very much for sharing today. I took a million notes. I can't even summarize because I've been writing all over the page. It's been awesome. But I think if I was to summarize it, understand the customer journey, figure out how you are unique and how you can understand your customer. So profile, social proof, the hell out of your product, and just keep selling and deliver that white glove service. And the digital space is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sounds right. Thanks, everybody.
You guys were awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you for everything.